welcome back to Demigod Debut. I'm Mal, Battle of the Labyrinth appreciator and longtime Percy Jackson fan.
You totally stole my intro.
Are you also a Battle of the Labyrinth appreciator?
Yes, I was gonna say I think this is my favorite book so far.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yes.
I really enjoyed this one. This one was my favorite. I'm Julie, and Mal stole my intro, so I'm also
Oh my god, we're both Battle of the Labyrinth appreciators. This means so much to me. Wow, we've really made it. Yeah, this is our podcast about Julie finishing Battle of the Labyrinth and becoming a Battle of the Labyrinth appreciator. I'm like for real gonna cry right now. Don't mind me. Anyway, so we have a returning guest with us today who has not been here in a while, but she was here for our final episodes of The Lightning Thief and Sea of Monsters, so it is only right to bring her back once again for the end of Battle of the Labyrinth. So here's Sydney once again.
Hi, I'm Sydney. I'm a friend of the pod. Like you guys, a longtime Battle of the Labyrinth enthusiast. And I'm just really jazzed that we've done one of these intros while I've been on, that Julie has admitted that she actually likes this book series. So I feel like a lot of growth has happened since the last time I was on this podcast.
Yeah, a lot has happened.
Wow, a lot has happened.
My opening question was going to be, what are your thoughts on this book? But I feel like you already gave us that, so.
You know, if we think all the way back to one of my very first episodes, guest starring on this podcast, I think I brought up the fact that when I was in fourth grade, my family and I road tripped out to California and we listened to a lot of the books on tape. And so I have distinct memories of listening to this book in particular, and especially when they talked about the symbol for Daedalus and the labyrinth being the delta. And so road tripping, it was really fun to see like, oh, where is the delta? Where's an entrance to the labyrinth? Yeah, this book is just like tied to those memories for me. And also like eating shoestring potato chips out of a can, which is very old fashioned, and beef jerky. So my thoughts on the book are that I love it, and this one's pretty near and dear to my heart. So excited to be on this episode.
Fantastic. I did realize that you were our very first guest ever.
That is true, yes.
I know, because I've been going back and looking at our old episodes. Julie, how was your snow day?
Yeah, please tell us about that.
I'm gonna lose my mind. I haven't like really left my house except to shovel.
Oh my god.
I'm not going back to work until Thursday. So
that's an entire week in your house.
Yes. I had a little bit of a meltdown yesterday about not being able to leave my house. And yeah. And then like I broke a nail and I just like I had a meltdown because I haven't left my house. And I've been with my family for an extended period of time.
And now you're here with us on Zoom.
Highlight of my week.
Yeah, so we've got a book to finish, and it feels a little bittersweet to be finishing this one, because on one hand, I'm so glad that Julie is done and Julie liked it, but also this one's my favorite, so I'm like sad to be done talking about it. And we've also been doing this since August. This one book we've been doing since August. It's the longest we've spent on any of the books, because we did 10 episodes instead of 8, and we did like every other week for a minute. So like this has been a journey. This has been a quest, you might even say.
Ooh.
I'm glad that we've done this and had this time together. Anyway, enough of that. So we have the final 3 chapters, starting with chapter 18. So chapter 18 is Grover Causes a Stampede. And so we kind of left off with Pan dying. And then, the chapter before that was Luke becoming Kronos. Great times all around. Now we're like racing back to camp because Luke Kronos, that's what I've decided I'm going to call him, just like a combination. Luke Kronos is going to attack. And we don't really get a lot on the whole trip back. Percy just kind of says they get back to the Marriott basement and he feels like they've run all the way from New Mexico, even though the distances are shorter. We get kind of a wild line here. Percy says, I couldn't decide what seemed less real, New York or the Crystal Cave where I'd watched a god die. And you know what? When you put it like that.
Can I actually ask a question here?
Yes.
Okay, You pointing out that line makes me think, does the Battle of the Labyrinth as a novel count as portal fiction? Does everybody know what portal fiction is?
No.
No.
Okay, so it's a subset of fantasy literature wherein the main character goes through a portal to enter a fantasy world. So Alice in Wonderland is one of like the earliest and the best examples of portal fiction.
Oh.
So is Percy as the hero entering a portal into another world in this novel? Is Rick Riordan genre bending and defying in this text? We all miss having the English teacher on.
I kind of feel like no, because I'm thinking obviously like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Chronicles of Narnia is like an example of
Yes.
portal.
Good examples, yes.
I feel like this is too intertwined with the regular world. So like there's mythological stuff that's happening like in the labyrinth, and like they do have to go into the labyrinth, but then there's also these parts where they like come out and they're in the real world. Like they were in Alcatraz fighting monsters, and we were on like a ranch in Texas. Like those are just kind of places in the real world. So I don't know if it would count.
That's so interesting because what they do in the labyrinth doesn't necessarily have equal bearing in the real world. Like it just kind of exists in the space that is the labyrinth. Yes, it has consequences in the real world, but it's not like a one-to-one.
Yeah, because like time is different and distance is different. Yeah.
Right. Julie, what do you think?
I really still don't understand what portal fiction is. I don't think I've never read Alice in Wonderland or The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, so I don't know that I've ever.
Okay, so we're starting some new podcasts, actually.
So catch us on the spin-off series. Okay, do you know the game Portal?
Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh. Man, those are like all of my best examples of it. So like essentially the protagonist, they go through some kind of portal. Maybe it's magical, maybe it's not. But in going through the portal, they leave essentially the mortal world behind to enter like a new reality in space.
Okay.
So just in thinking of those bare minimum rules, does this count?
I don't think so, because I feel like does time have to stop outside like in the mortal world? Is that a requirement or no?
No, that's not a requirement.
Okay. Maybe. But things that happen in the labyrinth affect the outside world.
Yeah, that's the part that's getting me. Like it's almost like the labyrinth is kind of like a parallel plane or something.
So you're saying because there's no true separation between the labyrinth and the mortal world, let's say, this doesn't count. Because, I can see where you might be hesitant to say it is portal fantasy, because then I think you could go back and really consider each book in the series should be some kind of portal fantasy, because in the first book where they go down to the underworld, that could be like them entering a new domain and a new reality, or every time they go out to Mount Olympus, that could be a new plane of existence. Have I overcomplicated this?
Well, and I think my main question is why? Like does it matter?
To me. To be annoying, I guess, is why it matters.
That's fair. I mean, yes, I feel like this line in particular kind of sounds like portal fiction, because like it feels like he's been in this sort of different reality, but now all of a sudden he's like back in the real world. But I don't know. I was reading it more as just like, we've had this really heavy thing happen that we've just had to like bottle up, because we like quite literally do not have the time to unpack this, because Lucronis's army is coming and like we have to be back at camp. Like we're having to really compartmentalize, and I'm just like, okay, these are children. Give them a second. Give them a second. You can't just like keep piling things on.
Ooh, real life relevant situation. I, like Percy, just want things to stop.
And yeah, that's real.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So could be portal fiction. TLDR, could be portal fiction.
Yeah, audience, you decide. In the comments.
Please tell us, do you think Battle of the Labyrinth?
Why for yes, in for no.
You can like add a comment on Spotify. Please tell us, do you think this is portal fiction?
Also, cite your sources. Give me 5 examples from the text that defend your answer. APA citations.
The English teacher is back.
Yes.
Okay, so We gotta go back to camp. And so Percy like whistles for some Pegasi and 5 of them show up. And then we start like saying goodbye to Rachel. And initially I was like, wait, if Rachel's not going, why are there 5 horses? Because I completely forgot about Nico.
Everybody has, Mal. Everybody else has.
I know. We were just judging Pan for not saying anything to Nico and like saying something to everyone else. But like I also just completely forgot that Nico was there. But in my defense, it has been several days since we read chapter 17. And also like Nico is not mentioned at all on like the first page of this chapter.
It's because Rick forgot about him too.
Yeah, he's not mentioned at all until after Rachel leaves. So I like forgot that he was there. But so saying goodbye to Rachel is a fun time. We finally get our straight answer about her dad. She says he's a land developer who's doing his best to destroy what's left of the wild. And, you know, given what just happened with Pan, she's pretty ashamed of like what her father does. And before she goes, she tells Percy if he ever feels like hanging out with a mortal again, he could call her or something. And Percy says, yeah, sure. And then feels bad that he sounds like kind of unenthusiastic. But he says he isn't really sure what to say with all of his friends standing around. And, you know, by friends, I'm sure he means mostly Annabeth, because I imagine she is here just fuming.
Mm-hmm.
He also says that his feelings have gotten pretty mixed up in the last couple days. And what I have to say to that is, boo, tomato, tomato, tomato.
I will not have any Rachel Elizabeth Dare slander.
No, this is more me booing Percy.
Okay, you can boo him.
Yeah, he is a risless little boy right here. It's so embarrassing to even read, especially as an adult person. It's like, oh my God.
Well, no, and I'm like, how is he pulling all these girls? Like, oh my God.
Because he's nice and funny. I mean, honestly, I think that's what it comes down to. But then if they interact with him for more than 30 minutes, they're like, wow, you have no clue.
Yeah, I'm just like, Percy, get it together. And, you know, they also have a little moment where he admits to memorizing her number because she's like, my number's not in the book. And this, like, sent me down a whole rabbit hole about the phone book because I was like, okay, this book came out in 2008. And that feels late for the phone book for me because I'm like, when is the last time that I saw a phone book? I did a little Googling and there's, you know, not one date that the last phone book ever was like printed because you can still get them. Fun fact.
We get them at my house.
Really?
No way.
They're a lot smaller than they used to be, but yeah, we're in there.
Wait. Hold on. Do you still have a landline?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because I did learn that like cell phone numbers aren't printed in phone books because apparently 2004 Congress like banned that because people like didn't want to get calls because like minutes and whatever, like the way phones used to be.
Mhm.
And I was like, huh, interesting. You know, phone books. But I mean, I guess 2008 it would still be a little bit.
2008 does feel reasonable because I do feel like the last time we actually got a huge phone book printed to our house was about 2009. But conversely, her dad is a very famous real estate developer.
Mhm.
I don't feel like her home number would be published
Mhm.
in it, you know?
Oh yeah, that man is paying the money every month to like have his number unlisted where no one can find it.
Wait, do you think it could be like Trump? Like her dad's Trump?
Uh,
Ew, oh God.
Because I'm like thinking, New York real estate developer. What am I thinking?
my God, the part that they don't tell you in the book is actually in about 20 years, Rachel's father will be running for president.
What if Rick just like threw
Yeah.
that into the new series? And President Dare just passed a law. Wait, hold on. Can I ask a follow-up question? Does that make Rachel, Tiffany, or Ivanka? Or Eric?
She's got to be Tiffany. Like, I feel like she gets forgotten.
So
I don't know enough about that man's children to.
I know way too much.
I was also thinking just how it's really crazy that phone books just would give you people's information, like
Their home address.
their home address and their number. And also, like, you can still kind of look that stuff up. Like, there's still white pages online. Like, you can put in people's names. Like, I put in mine and it's not actually correct, like, the information that comes up. And I was like, thank goodness. But
Creepy.
I was like looking up other people that I know and I was like, oh, this is their number. So that's kind of wild.
Like, no semblance of privacy at all. I hate it.
Yeah, in the early 2000s, the phone book did the doxing for you.
Crazy people had to like take that extra step. But like I feel like everybody is more insane now than they were before, or at least it's more visible. And it's so easy to just Google. Like you Google me, like you get my work, you know where I work, and you know what I look like, and you know my work number. So you could just show up at my work.
I'm Googling you right now, actually. Oh, there's an actor with the same name as you.
Oh, really?
That's what comes up before anything actually related to you. Wow.
Thank God. There's a more famous me
Oh, then there's your work.
and a terrible headshot.
Also, okay, wait. Back on the phone book. Did anyone's like elementary school give out a little like mini phone book that had all the students and like their siblings listed and like your home phone number and your address? Like,
Yes.
No.
Not address, but home phone number, yes. I'm assuming it was more for like a parent PTA thing, but yeah.
yeah. I think it was so like if, somebody was trying to invite everybody to their birthday party or like send out Christmas cards or whatever the things that you used to do in the 2000s, you like had everybody's address. So I guess the next thing that happens is, Rachel makes her exit and tells Percy, "See you later, Percy Jackson. Go save the world for me," which is an unbelievably cheesy line to end things on. But I don't know. What do you think, Julie? Will he be calling her?
He better. I just want them to be friends. I want more Rachel. I want to see her again. I don't care what happens between them. I just want more Rachel.
I know. She's so cool. I love Rachel.
Iconic.
Any inklings of like what you would want to happen with Rachel or what you think might happen with Rachel? Just wondering.
Well, I don't want to get too far ahead, but obviously not everything is resolved
Right.
at the end of this book. So I'm like, she has to be involved in like the final battle, I think. I think we'll see her again. If we don't, I'm gonna write a nasty gram to Rick. Be like, how could you do this to me?
How could you cut my favorite character?
Yeah.
Well, great. Then, we get our reminder that Nico is indeed with us because when Percy comes back, Nico is having trouble with the Pegasi because they're nervous that he smells like dead people. And Nico's like, "It's fine. I don't want to go to that stupid camp anyway." And Percy tries to convince him that they need his help, but like Nico's not having it until Annabeth asks, and all of a sudden he's like, "Okay, fine, for you." Which, I'd come along for Annabeth too. He's not special. Anyway, I mean, listen, if Percy is gonna have his like little things with Rachel and Calypso, I think it's only fair that Annabeth, gets her own little like flings and people who have crushes on her. But like, Nico's like 11.
Nico's a child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, this is weird because of reasons, but that's whatever. Anyway, we make it back to camp and fill in Chiron of like all the things that have been going on. And the only thing he really seems surprised by is Nico being there. So like he's not really thrown by the Quintus thing, not Lucronos. He's just kind of like, I feared as much. Which is kind of like, okay, Chiron, you couldn't have warned us that all these things were going to happen. But anyway. Then we also have Selenis, not to be confused with Selena, who actually hasn't been mentioned in a while, but Selenis is one of the Council of Cloven Elders, so he's also there. He's like, "Wait a second, forget the war, we have to punish Grover, we have to take away his searcher's license." And to that I have to say, dude, read the room. An invasion is coming, and this is the thing that you're worried about.
So petty.
Yeah. And, not to get political about it, but it's kind of giving the way Sydney sat up when I said political.
It's giving Hunter Biden being pardoned in the face of all of our rights being taken away. Sorry.
Well, because I was going to say, it's kind of like a certain political party that is more worried about, like, people using bathrooms than genocide that's going on. And I'm just like, why?
Oh, no, that's a much better example. Yeah, okay.
What are we doing? Priorities.
Yeah.
Not to make it political, but it's a little bit political.
We've been political on this podcast since episode.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I'd made a 9/11 joke. Like,
it's fine. One thing that I appreciate, though, is how just kind of chill Grover is about it. Because Selenis is kind of like, "We need to punish Grover." And Grover's like, "All right, That's fine. He's like, searcher's license don't even matter anymore. Like, Pan is dead.
Is he chill, or has his entire worldview just shifted? And so he's like, whatever. Like, there is nothing you can do to me that is worse than what has already been done to me.
Well, no, you're right. That's exactly what it is. But I don't know. I feel like either when your worldview is like so shaken, you either do what Grover's doing and you get like real chill about it. It's like whatever. Or you get, I'm thinking like Annabeth and the way that she was like kind of losing her mind in Daedalus's workshop because her worldview was kind of changing. So like, I don't know. Some people are more like outwardly emotional and then some people get to be like, whatever. And I just appreciate Grover's whatever, you know?
You know, over Thanksgiving, I went home and my mom made chili. And as she was stirring the chili, I sang the song from The Good Place, you know, the chili song. You in the pot and you make it taste bad. She's like, what are you talking about? I was like, you know, when he puts peeps in the chili.
Wait, Peeps?
Yes, peeps in the chili.
Like the marshmallows?
Oh no, now I have to explain it to you too, Julie. Okay.
I've never seen the show. I'm sorry.
Oh, you would love it. Okay, so for context, this particular character is a professor and his work is done in philosophy. And so his entire worldview and like his whole research line is just upended. So because of that, he just kind of goes on this downward spiral pretty quickly. So he shortly decides thereafter that nothing matters. And so he goes into class because he's teaching, wearing the shirt that says it's wine o'clock. He has jorts on.
No. It says like who, what, when, where, wine, doesn't it?
That's right. And instead of actually lecturing to his students, he decides to make a chili. But because nothing matters, he's like, well, you know, there's no rules in the universe.
He starts putting like M&Ms and Peeps in the chili.
And you put the Peeps in the pot and you make it taste bad. So that's where Grover's at.
Yes. But I almost think that Grover is in a place to be more productive with his, because like he's very much like, yeah, nothing matters. You can't hurt me because it's already over. But he's kind of channeling that less into making horrific chili and more into like, we have to start like saving the wild ourselves.
That's fair. The pain has not set in yet. He's just in shock.
Yeah. You know, Chiron's doing his like, okay, we can talk about this if we're all still alive tonight. Priorities kind of situation. And then Percy kind of walks us through the camp defenses and like where all the cabins are and what they're doing. And the only campers he mentions by name here are Beckendorf and Clarice. And Beckendorf is manning catapults the size of pickup trucks, and Clarice is bossing around her cabin. And then other fun details are that the Aphrodite cabin is running around straightening armor because you can't defeat Kronos if you aren't cute.
So true.
We also get what I think is our second ever mention of Dionysus's kids at camp. I know we mentioned them in The Lightning Thief that he has 2 kids, but then I don't think we talked about them since. Percy also notes that like Dionysus himself is not here. He also points out that even if he was here, he would be forbidden from interfering directly. Why is that a rule that the Titans don't have to follow? And like why in this situation did the gods not throw that rule out the window, knowing that their opponent is not following that rule?
It's not like there's like an impending apocalypse or anything. Like if there's one time to throw out the rule book, it's now.
And it's not even like they have demonstrated great respect for the rules just in general.
No.
Look at the demigods. Like they sleep with everybody. That's one rule they don't follow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm like, this whole thing kind of started because 3 gods agreed not to have kids and then had kids. So, yeah, it's a little bit like, oh, okay, this is the... No, they're just trying to avoid being embarrassed and getting their butt kicked, so they just stay out of it. You know, really puts our children here, our child soldiers, at a very big disadvantage.
I hate that.
That's what they are! That's the
I
thing.
know, but it just sounds really bad.
I know, it's awful. And, you know, Chiron kind of looks at all this and he's like, it's not enough. As Percy's kind of thinking, like, this is the biggest camp defense, like, I've ever seen. And Chiron's like, it's not enough, which, like, is not really the hopeful note that we want to go into a battle on. We also start to have a little bit of a conversation between like Percy and Chiron about what happened with Luke. And Percy is like very clearly in this conversation, like he's very rattled by the things that he has seen. But again, we have no time to unpack what has happened. Like it has just been one thing after another, and they have not had a second to breathe. Give the children a break. I'm stressed for them. So in their little conversation, Chiron and Percy talk about how Luke should have turned to ashes, but we get kind of this information yet again, like his body was prepared in some way. And we don't get answers as to what that means as of yet, but Chiron also says he doesn't think that Luke Kronos is going to lead this attack because of what Nico did when he kind of pulled the throne room down on top of him. Chiron here does kind of a pointed, like, your friend Nico, son of Hades thing, which, makes Percy feel guilty that he didn't tell Chiron. It also makes me kind of wonder how long Chiron has known.
I mean, I guess this begs the question, do you think Percy can actually keep a secret? I think the answer is no.
No. Yeah. Well, and I think, like, Chiron's been doing this a long time. I think he's seen a lot of demigods. I think he recognizes, like, the sorts of powers that
You can see the
certain-
signs.
Yeah, and I'm like, Nico destroyed the skeletons in the dining pavilion, left a big crack in the floor. Like, Chiron's not stupid. I think that's why Chiron was like, I hope Nico gets eaten by monsters and dies, because like he knows that he's,
Yeah.
he said that in Titan's Curse. He was like, well, I hope he dies instead of being used by the Titans, which is a wild thing. We really don't have time for much more conversation about this. Chiron does this little like, I get it, you wanted to protect him, but if we're gonna get through this, we have to trust each other. And then all of a sudden, the Titan army is pouring out of the Labyrinth entrance into camp. It's a hard read. It is a stressful read because they're giving it their all and things are not really going that well. And then once it feels like we're kind of making some progress, there's like a second wave of monsters, but like we don't have another wave of demigods to like attack these monsters. And it's just like there's just constant monsters coming out of the maze. There are some fun details in here though. Number one, Annabeth is fighting with a sword, which I don't think has ever happened. I don't think we've ever seen that. And then Percy also mentions that Tyson is riding a giant because he like climbed up its back and is like hitting him on the head with a shield. And all I can think is, the dog on the counter meme. It's like, why is Tyson riding a giant? Because he likes to be tall. And then, we also get our not so fun details. We see one of Dionysus' sons get taken down by an enemy half-blood. R.I.P. to Castor, whose name we don't even find out until later. Nico summons some undead warriors and then like collapses, and Percy doesn't even have enough time to check and see if Nico's okay. There's also a forest fire starting to happen that Percy has to put out. And like just when things are starting to look okay, here comes our good old friend Pompey, the one that's like made horrifyingly with the belt of animal faces and the, from Alcatraz. This is also a very long battle scene, and I'm just going to continue to describe things, so sorry that you have to just listen to my voice. Percy and Annabeth decide to charge, like, Pompey together, and they have a fun little conversation on the way, where she's like, this might be it. He goes, could be. Nice fighting with you, Seaweed Brain. Ditto. And, like, I know we don't have time for anything more heartfelt, but imagine if this really was it, and his last words to her were literally just, ditto. Nice fighting with you, Seaweed Brain is like at least good.
It's sentimental. It has, something implied in it. He's just so dumb. He's so dumb.
He is just missing every single time. And for a second, it does seem like this is going to be their last conversation because Pompey's got them pinned. But then good old Mrs. O'Leary shows up, knocks her off of them. And Daedalus / Quintus is also with her. So is our old friend Briares. And Briares has found his whole, like, tall as the sky mountain breaking size once again and throws a bunch of boulders and squishes Pompey. Thank God. I'm sick of her. And then this kind of rattles the monster army, but the threat of Kronos is more intimidating. So they kind of have, like, a last desperate push. They injure Chiron, but then Grover lets out this like horrible sound that Percy describes as the sound of pure fear, which then causes the army to drop their weapons and flee into the labyrinth. That's kind of our final battle here. It's about 7.5 pages of final battle. And Julie, I want to know your thoughts on this kind of battle moment.
I love it for Grover, although I don't really I can't really picture, I guess, the sound that he's making. Like the way they describe it as being like a sound of pure fear or something. I don't understand how that's threatening in a way, I guess. Other than it would be like
Yeah.
startling, but not like scary. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know that it's necessarily scary. I always read it more as like it's this magical thing that just makes them afraid. Like, not that the sound necessarily is.
So the sound causes the fear.
Yeah, so it's not like we're scared of the sound. I think it's just like a magical. I
Okay.
don't know.
That makes more sense.
Yeah. I always imagined it as the yop from Horton Hears a Who.
The what?
The yop? You know, when at least in the movie when Jojo goes, yop.
I have not seen the Horton Hears a Who movie.
Oh.
I've read the book, but
Well, the Who's yop in the book too, right?
Yop.
Nico yops.
It's not Nico, it's Grover.
I'm sorry, Grover. Whatever. The yop. The yop happened, okay? I'm not crazy. This is real.
Interesting pulls.
Okay. Keep going. Keep going.
Um, my thoughts on this fight scene. Sometimes I kind of jokingly refer to this as like the lamest final battle of all time, just because like it is like 7.5 pages, which is kind of crazy for this invasion that we've been talking up the entire book. And it ends kind of in a draw because like it's not some crushing victory for either side. But, I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing that this is somewhat underwhelming because obviously this is book 4, so we've got a whole other book to go, and I think it does a good job kind of establishing some stakes for our last book because we've got this battle on our home turf. We sort of win on a technicality with this weird power that Grover summoned, and we kind of got lucky that we had all these friends come from the Labyrinth that joined us in the end. And I think it kind of shows us the might of this army that we're gonna have to face again. And it also shows us like how outnumbered and overpowered like these kids are. Because, we made it work today. We will continue to squeak by and live to fight another day. But I think, combined with the scene with Lou Kronos earlier that we like barely escaped. And then there's this where we like kind of only made it through because we got lucky. And so like what's gonna happen when we actually have Lou Kronos leading the attack? Are we gonna get lucky again? Or like are our losses gonna be much greater next time? And I think, ending it with this, it's not like some definitive victory for camp where we like overpowered all these monsters and have this amazing fight. Like we're just kind of in limbo here. I think it like points out all the ways that we're kind of at a disadvantage, like going into the final battle. And I don't know, I'm just like, I like it. I kind of like this being a sort of lame battle in many ways. I don't know. I just yapped.
You yapped. I really don't have any opinion over it one way or the other because I do feel like regardless as to whether or not this fight happened at the end of this book, the stakes have already been raised so significantly throughout the course of the last 4 books that there was already like a natural peak to them that sort of has to happen at the end of this book, battle notwithstanding. And, is it a taste of what's to come? I don't know if it's the most accurate taste, especially given that once this battle is over, we kind of get a glimpse at what a normal, quote unquote, life looks like for Percy. So I don't know if it was like the most necessary interlude. But you know what? Maybe it serves as a good reminder that while the gang was in the labyrinth, things were still happening in the mortal world.
Yeah, and that makes it not a portal book.
I don't think that's the definition as to what a portal book is not, though.
I don't know. It's kind of an interesting finale for this book, I think. But it's also not a finale because there's still like 2.5 chapters left.
Crazy.
After the battle is over. And we just kind of spend the rest of the time tying up our loose ends mostly, but then also getting more, like loosening some more things for the next one. So how we all fared after the battle. Chiron's got some broken legs, but like he'll be fine. Nico is pretty unwell after summoning the ghost, but they give him some nectar and he's also probably going to be fine. It is a cool detail though that Percy says that all the grass around him has like died and he's just like in a circle of dead grass. That's cool. And then once Nico's okay. We get to talk to both Daedalus and Briares, who came to save the day. I think Daedalus is kind of brave to come back here when he is literally the one that gave the Titan army the ability to navigate the maze and like made this invasion possible. He's like trying to lump himself in with Briares. Is like, oh, we're just two guys who wanted to come and make amends. But like, Briares is a whole different thing. Like, he just needed to find his confidence again. Like, Daedalus was actively working for the enemy.
I have a soft spot for him.
Really? I'm anti-Daedalus.
I like him. I think he redeemed himself after well, definitely at the end, but
you know what? I think he's kind of like Pedro Pascal's character in Gladiator 2. He's just a man to do his job, okay?
How many things can you reference in this?
So many. I plug myself into the internet at night.
So, listen, Daedalus, I'm not saying that he does not do his best to make amends here, because he knows that the Titan army is going to continue to use the Labyrinth as long as he's alive, and so he also knows, like, he should have died a long time ago. And, before he goes, he does give Annabeth what's probably my favorite magical item in the series, which, the laptop with all of his work on it. And it's just so cool. It's so cool. And I was thinking about this last time when I was so upset that they got rid of the wings. Like, there's probably plans for the wings on the laptop. And, he definitely gives the laptop to the right person, because Percy says, like, Annabeth looks at it like it's solid gold. And she's like, oh my God, this is priceless. And I like that he tells her to, like, take his ideas and improve upon them. Like, that's important to me. It's also interesting that Percy is very much like, whoa, 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 wait, you can't just, like, kill yourself. That's wrong. When it's also wrong to just keep making yourself bodies to, like, live forever. Like, that's weird. Daedalus also is kind of willing to take whatever judgment there is in the underworld. Like, he's not worried about the unfair judgment from Minos, and he even offers his soul to Nico, but Nico says, like, Bianca has passed and he can't bring her back. And Daedalus also tasks Percy with caring for Mrs. O'Leary. Side note, I love how his first thought is, oh my God, my mom's apartment doesn't allow dogs, much less like dogs that are bigger than the apartment. And then, Daedalus dies. His little automaton body turns to ash, and then, like, he's gone. And kind of with him, there's this earthquake, and, like, the labyrinth is also gone. I have, just in general, some thoughts on kind of this trope that comes up a lot in stories about someone who's, like, made a lot of mistakes and, like, hurt a lot of people, making this kind of 11th hour sacrifice to set things right, and then kind of being looked at as a hero. But I do think the one with Daedalus here is done pretty well, because, we're not walking away from this being like, oh, Daedalus is the best guy ever, and, like, he's a perfect person and he saved the day. Like, I think, he made his amends best he could, and now he has to face judgment in the underworld. And, we recognize that, like, we made the right choice in the end, but also there was a lot of harm caused. And, like, I appreciate that we're not walking away, like, trying to glorify Daedalus. And that's kind of our end of chapter 18. It ends, with Percy saying, come on, we've got work to do. And we do indeed have work to do. Anyone else have anything on 18? I feel like I talked a lot.
You're good. You got it.
I have a lot of things to say.
Well, I have a lot of references to make, so.
Chapter 19 is The Council Gets Cloven. And so, first thing we have to do in this chapter is burn some shrouds, this time on actual bodies, which, horrible. And so, we have Lee Fletcher, who was first mentioned by name for the first time earlier this book. He's dead. And I remember us having a conversation earlier in this book where you were like, should I know this guy? And I was like, no, this is the first time he's been mentioned. He was really only mentioned so that we had a name so that he could die later, it kind of seems like. And that's kind of, I don't want to say something fun about Percy's narration, but, like, it is kind of fun about Percy's narration. Like, he doesn't give us much information about background characters until there is some way that they're going to be relevant to the story, whether that is that they are about to die or they're about to, like, do something or help them out in some way. Like, it's just, we don't know anything about anyone at camp who is not, like, an active player in, like, whatever is going on. And I just think that's kind of funny. And then, kind of like Lee, we have one of the sons of Dionysus who died, and his existence was mentioned exactly twice, once in the Lightning Thief and then once right before this battle. And, we don't find out his name until now when he's having a funeral. And his name is Castor. He's got a twin brother, Pollux. Maybe whoever their mom is manifested this ending, because when you name your twin sons after the mythological twin brothers Castor and Pollux, like Castor dies in the myth. Like you are manifesting that like he is going to die. Castor and Pollux are also really interesting. I didn't know that much about them, but they are apparently the brothers of Helen of Troy. They're actually half brothers, but they're twins because one of them is a son of Zeus and one of them is the son of like this mortal king. Also, Castor and Pollux become the like Gemini constellation. Like that's what that is. Just the more you know. But yeah, the Hunger Games, there's also twins or brothers. I can't remember if they're twins in the Hunger Games, Castor and Pollux, and guess what happens to them? I'm just saying. But I did read Percy Jackson first as a kid, and then when I read The Hunger Games, I was like, oh wow, that's so crazy. There's another set of brothers named Castor and Pollux, and Castor dies. So, like, don't name your twins Castor and Pollux if you don't want Castor to die, is what I'm saying.
I mean,
TLDR.
I wasn't going to, but like, good reminder, just in case.
Keep that in the back of your head.
Right.
But I also just feel like unilaterally for all of the children who are demigods in this series who are named after heroes or at least people in myths, like why are the mortal parents like, oh haha, wouldn't it be funny? Like you have some kind of baseline understanding that these things are real, which also then you can infer that the fates are real. So why are you tempting fate?
The only one who did it right was Sally Jackson, being like, I'm gonna name my son who's going into this mythological world after the one hero that got a happy ending, because we are manifesting that.
I mean, she played it safe and smart.
And that's why Sally Jackson is a queen among women. After our little funerals, we have a stupid emergency council meeting where Grover has to explain what happened in the cave with Pan, and also how the noise he made was like Pan's power of panic, this like massive wave of fear that scares away enemies. And the council, of course, does not believe him, which, I mean, we weren't really expecting anything less. Honestly, thinking about it, I don't know that Grover would be able to accept this as the truth if he hadn't seen this himself,
That's a good point. I don't know, when your entire life is built around one mission and then some young upstart tells you, hey, don't worry guys, the mission's done, why would you believe it?
Right.
Because what do you have left after?
Right. And it's like it's a scary thing to have to accept that like this savior that you've been looking for your whole life is not coming.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Grover is about to be exiled, but no, we have one more 11th hour appearance by an unlikely ally, and this time it's Dionysus returning from his mission, visiting the minor gods, and he's got bad news that they all seem to be defecting to Titan's side. He's also not in a great mood after learning that his son is dead, because even deadbeat fathers have feelings. This did kind of make me think about what it must be like to be at this camp and your father is there, but your father is forced to be there. Like, does he interact with his children at all? Is he any nicer to his kids than he is to the ones that aren't his kid? Like,
do we really think Dionysus is an emotionally available father?
Absolutely not.
Like, so I feel like it doesn't matter if he interacts with them more because I just don't think he's a good dad.
I mean, I really don't think any of them are.
I think Poseidon is the best one. Out of all of them, I think he's the best.
Out of the options we have seen, absolutely.
I'm not saying he's necessarily good.
Yeah.
But out of all of them, I think he's probably the best.
Yeah.
Sure, it's not hard to be the best out of bad options.
It's a low bar. The bar's in hell.
Yeah.
Really.
Anyway, pour one out for Dionysus's kids, because being faced with your deadbeat father all the time,
that would suck.
It's like he's there, but he's not emotionally available. Like that's almost worse. Grover tells his little story again, and Dionysus says, yeah, that seems like something Pan would do. And he also tells them that, the searching is getting tired. It's time that you start thinking for yourselves. And so they vote. The three satyrs on the council vote to exile Grover, and Chiron and Mr. D vote no. And Dionysus says that since he's a god, his vote counts twice. And I want to know, is this a rule that he just made up right now? Or is this like always?
Absolutely he did.
It's voter fraud. That's what it is.
But it works in Grover's favor, so we'll allow it. And so the council kind of ends up dissolved, and a lot of the satyrs end up leaving, but Grover, talks to the ones that are still around about what Pan said and starts kind of giving them tasks to do. And Annabeth notes that Grover seems like he's growing up, and, he is. And I think as much as finding Pan kind of broke, his worldview, I think it was also freeing for him in a way. Because, like, number one, it's got to be so validating to know that, like, he is Pan's chosen one. Like, he is the one that Pan chose to kind of, like, carry on the spirit and, like, lead this charge. I also think this is kind of the first clear mission that he has had, that he, like, knows what the next step is. Because this, like, idea of finding Pan is, like, a nice idea, but there's never really any concrete steps of, like, where do I look? What do I do? But, like, there's a very clear, like, we need to go and we need to, like, protect the wild spaces that we have. And so here's how we can do that. And so I think getting to see Grover, like, grow and step up into this thing that he's supposed to be is just, it's so great. It's lovely.
I love that for him.
I love Grover.
Finding his place in a world without Pan.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to make your own Pan. I don't know. I don't know. We also get a little bit of closure next with Briareus. So Tyson gives him some directions to the Cyclops forges so that he can help them figure out how to build some new things, and also, like, he can get some community and not be alone, which is great. And then, kind of, other than our still looming threat of Lucronos, our other loose end that we don't really tie up is kind of Nico. So he's at camp, kind of hanging out in the shadows. He refuses a spot at the Hermes table and also refuses a spot at the head table with Chiron, but that one's kind of fair. I don't think I would accept a spot at the head table, especially if I already felt like an outsider. Like, that just feels kind of a lot,
Feels awkward, very on the spot.
Yeah. He also, like, he disappears into the woods during their campfire sing-along, and Percy sort of follows him and realizes that Nico has summoned Bianca one last time to say goodbye. He says he's not going to stay at camp because he's not welcome. And Percy kind of thinks back on how Pan didn't address Nico, like, with a little personal message the way that he had done that for the rest of them, and how, I completely forgot that Nico was even with them earlier. So the outside part is true, but the thing that kind of kills me is at least a little bit of it is self-inflicted. Like, yeah, people think that you're scary and unapproachable a little bit, but you make it worse when you're slinking around in the shadows. Because you're here at this camp of weird kids. You're not the weirdest kid.
I disagree. I was about to say, in the camp of weird kids, he might be the weirdest kid.
Like, who's weirder?
Yeah. The man doesn't sleep. He doesn't eat. He just kind of fades in and out. Like, at least the other ones are social. They're weird, but social.
Well, no, see, that's my thing. I'm like, the things about him that are, like, because of the fact that his dad is Hades, that's not the thing that's, like, off-putting. The thing that's off-putting is him, like, slinking around in the shadows and, like, being like, no one wants to be my friend. So I'm like, people would be your friend.
But he doesn't even have a cabin there.
That is true. That is true.
Like, I think the Hades thing is off-putting to them.
I mean, he allegedly smells like death. Could you imagine being friends with someone who smells like death?
That is true. The Pegasi did say that. I feel like I remember there were kids that I, like, went to middle school with who were obsessed with death and were very, like, depressed. And I'm like, that feels like the kind of kid that would get along with Nico.
Yeah, the kid who would, like, write Linkin Park lyrics in a notebook.
Yes.
Yeah, that is Nico D'Angelo.
That kid has to exist at camp. Nico just, like, has to find them. And in order to do that, like, he has to stop this kind of internalized, like, no one wants to be my friend nonsense and show the people, which, like, this is a lot to ask for 11-year-old, like, I will give you that. But he needs to kind of show them that, like, a son of Hades isn't necessarily what they think he is,
I do think it would be better if he owned it. Because at this point, Nico is very unsure of himself and he lacks a lot of self-confidence. So I do think that if he really came into his own and he demonstrated that he was okay and comfortable with all of these things that make him who he is, other people would follow suit.
Yeah, but again, that's hard when you're 11. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the scene from Meet the Robinsons,
Oh, now who's making the references? Who's making the
I know. He's, like, walking down the hallway and the other kids are like, hey, cool binder. Hey, you want to come hang out? And he's like, they all hated me. Like, that's kind of what it feels like. It's like he's so sure that like everyone is going to hate him and like doesn't want to hang out with him because of who he is, that like he's not even trying is the thing. And it's like, yeah, some people are going to be totally off put by a son of Hades, and that's just life, and that sucks. But there are people who would be willing to be Nico's friend, and he just has to find them. Part of the reason why Nico is leaving is not just, because he feels unwelcome at camp. He also wants to go and like figure some things out about his past, because he remembers like nothing. He doesn't remember his mother. He wants to know like how they ended up in the Lotus Hotel, who got them out of the hotel, like who was paying for their school. Like he wants to figure out what his deal is. So, Julie, do you have any thoughts on Nico's past or like what he's got going on?
Just that I think Hades like took care of everything. I don't know how we did it, but didn't think about that too much.
Okay.
But
and we have a kind of sweet final moment between the two of them for now, where Percy offers Nico the Hades Mythomagic figurine. Nico says he doesn't play anymore because that game is for little kids.
I'm 11 and I'm so tough and old.
Can't play silly little children's games. But I love that Percy goes, it's got 4,000 attack power. And like Nico just can't help himself from being like, 5,000, but only if your opponent attacks first. And so like Percy like tosses a little figurine to him and says, sometimes it's okay to be a kid. And this is all cute and great until you remember that this is the figurine that his sister like literally died for. And then Nico's off saying he's got a lot to investigate, and if he finds anything useful, he'll let Percy know. And by let him know, he does mean turn up on the fire escape at his birthday party. And then, so the last little thing in this chapter, we have a chat with Mr. D, who says that what Percy and Annabeth did was mildly competent, but also he's not sure if he should thank them for saving the camp, because Mr. D, if anything, is a hater. He does, however, reveal that he cured Chris Rodriguez, and honestly leaves us with a pretty good bit of wisdom here. And so I'm gonna read it. He says, a kind act can sometimes be as powerful as a sword. As a mortal, I was never a great fighter or athlete or poet. I only made wine. The people in my village laughed at me. They said I would never amount to anything. But look at me now. Sometimes small things can become very large indeed. And I just think that's a good lesson to teach kids. Sometimes you might not be the smartest or the best at sports or whatever, but you can still be kind and you can still make a big impact. So, life lessons. And, Percy kind of thinks on this as he watches Clarice and Chris hold hands and have a good time together. I just have to say, once again, you can give Clarice a boyfriend all you want, but you cannot change my mind. That is a gay woman.
Agreed.
Yeah. I think this Clarice and Chris is fun for now, but I think she's going to realize some things about herself in college.
Don't we all?
She's going to have more time to explore in college.
Clarice is the character that I have projected onto, so that's where that comes from. Okay, anything else on chapter 19?
No, this one was short.
This felt a lot like an ending, Like it felt like we were tying up all the loose ends here. And then chapter 20 feels a little bit more like we're leading into something, like we're building to the next one.
I almost wonder if it was better to label chapter 20 as an epilogue rather than chapter 20.
Because that's kind of what it feels like. It's kind of an epilogue.
Because it's more of the bridge that connects the two books than it is
Yeah.
a true ending of this.
It's a good point. We also have, kind of not a true time skip, but kind of a time, like we start, chapter 20, by the way, is my birthday party takes a dark turn.
Rick does skip and he goes, oh, yeah, don't worry about the rest of the summer.
It's a pretty normal summer. There's capture the flag, there's Pegasus riding, there's rock climbing, all the things. And we also get, the fun little tidbit that Percy and Annabeth are pretty much just skirting around each other, which sucks. And he says, I was glad to be with her, but it also kind of hurt. And it hurt when I wasn't with her too. Like, God, what a sentence. He wants to talk about Kronos with her, but he can't do that without bringing up Luke, and like Annabeth won't talk to him about Luke. Like we're in a bad spot. Dare I say that these are the worst that the vibes have been between them all book. Like things have been declining since Calypso's Island, and we have reached rock bottom. And Percy's got a shovel and he is prepared to dig.
Yeah, it's just very uncomfortable and hormonal.
And eventually it's kind of the end of summer and it's time to head back to Manhattan. And Percy hopes that Annabeth will be coming to Manhattan with him. Maybe he was hoping that they could finally go on their little movie date. But she is staying at camp. She'll be there a couple more weeks, and then she'll head off to be with her dad in San Francisco. And finally, we learn the last line of her prophecy. And Percy kind of walks us through, the whole thing again. You shall delve in the darkness of the endless maze, the dead, the traitor, and lost one raise. Lots of dead, Ethan the traitor, Pan the lost one. You shall rise or fall by the Ghost King's hand, which, turned out to be Nico. Child of Athena's final stand and Destroy with the Hero's final breath both ended up being Daedalus. And Annabeth, finally then tells us the last line, which is, lose a love to worse than death. And there is no question what and who that is about. The way that she goes, I didn't know who the prophecy was talking about. I didn't know if ... Like, she was thinking, I didn't know if it was going to be you. I didn't know if it was going to be Luke. And like, just thinking about her having this hanging over her head the entire quest hurts me. Like, she knew the entire time, like, she was going to have to say goodbye to someone, but she didn't know who.
They need to be nicer to her. Let her live.
Yeah. From the time that she was 7, running away, she has never had a moment's peace.
I mean, she really hasn't. And I can't imagine dealing with that kind of trauma at like 15, 16 years old.
I think if I had to pick one thing that I would want from Annabeth's perspective, is I would want her 2 weeks while Percy is on Calypso's island. Like, I want to know, what is she thinking? What are the things that she's feeling in that moment? Because I think you've got this prophecy. If it were me, I would be thinking, okay, so what's just happened is either Destroy with the Hero's final breath. I was like, so either Percy has exploded this volcano, and that's like the Destroy with the Hero's final breath, and like Percy is dead, or something even worse has happened, and I have lost a love to worse than death. I almost think that's why they were so willing to have. I also kind of wonder if, because I kind of think prophecies can have multiple ways that they could play out, And I'm thinking of like the lose a love to worse than death. Like, would we consider him staying with Calypso losing him to worse than death, like at least to Annabeth?
But wouldn't it be like he died? I mean, he'd be essentially gone forever, right?
Yeah.
See, I don't know if that's worse than death, because Julie, I do tend to agree with you that it's practically death. So I don't think it can be interpreted in that way. Whereas like Luke's body horror thing that he has going on, that's worse than death.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just thinking like it almost feels like to her, it would feel worse to have yet another person like choose to leave her than like if he had died. So that's more the direction. Not that like the situation is worse, but I think like to her, it would feel worse for him to like choose to leave rather than like die,
I don't know, because that's what she's used to. I don't think it's worse when that's your baseline.
Yeah, but not from Percy. He has always been the one who has not left. That's his whole thing. His whole thing is loyalty.
I don't know. I don't think she expects it from anybody. So I think that's all she really knows.
God, this book series is so mean to her.
Did you make yourself so sad? I mean, but like most books are mean to women.
I just want to like pick her up. I want to wrap her in a nice warm blanket, and I just want to like kiss her little forehead and tuck her in and be like, just rest. Please, you've done enough. And thinking about her in like the first book, like she wanted this so bad. She wanted to lead a quest. Like she wanted to be this hero. And like now that things are happening, things need to stop happening. I could talk for a million years about Annabeth Chase. She is fascinating and fantastic.
And in fact, you have.
I know. I was kind of thinking it would be fun, like if I could get a Spotify Wrapped in real life that was just like, how long have you spent talking about Percy Jackson this year? Because we've put out 40 episodes of this podcast, and each one is about an hour. We're looking at a little under like 2 days of, and that's not counting the ones that we've talked for longer and I've cut them down. Like we have potentially spent 2 entire days of this year.
Oh my God.
Percy Jackson.
Oh gosh.
And that's not counting the amount of times that I just do this for free, like not on the podcast. Anyway, yep. Because then the next thing that happens is yet another bad thing for Annabeth, because Hera shows up and starts being the absolute worst, talking about how, oh, you saved the family and everyone who we lost is like better off gone. And she talks about how she paid Garyon for their safe passage there to the ranch, and she let like Percy's arrow fly straight. She sent Percy to Calypso's island and also like opened up the pathway to the Titan's mountain. Then she asks Annabeth for a sacrifice in thanks, which like she is fully turning the iPad around to be like, tip please. And you know Hera does not have like a 10% option. No, that starts at 25.
Also, I don't think you can ask for a sacrifice. I think that's asking for a surprise party. Like, it has to be given.
I almost feel like if she hadn't asked, Annabeth might have been like, okay, I'll like throw her a little something. But I think it's like because she asked. And also, I think she also made some pretty crucial mistakes here. Number one, saying that like Luke is better off gone. And number two, admitting that she's the one that sent Percy to Calypso's island. Like, congrats, you found the two things most likely to piss her off. And then, little Miss Hubris looks at Hera and is like, next time, thanks, but no thanks. And simp of all time, Perseus Jackson, looks at her facing off with this goddess and thinks, yeah, this is one of the things I like most about her. This stubbornness. And see, I'm like, if you could just verbalize some of these things that you're thinking in your head about her, like if you could make it clear to her that this is the way that you're feeling, we would be in a much better spot. Because I think our biggest problem is that it's like, it's unclear to her how he's feeling. Because he's not a good communicator. But that's besides the point. Hera tells her that she's going to regret this and disappears. Annabeth says that she needs to get back, but that she'll keep in touch. And so then Percy like drops the ball hard here because he wants to tell her that he doesn't want to be so distanced from her. And then Argus honks and he loses his chance and she like jogs down the hill and doesn't look back. And it's just absolutely brutal. But if they had more time, I don't know what he would say here because he was thinking about like the Mount St. Helens moment, aka the kiss. Like he doesn't say the kiss, but when he's like Mount St. Helens, like he's thinking about the kiss. He's thinking about Calypso's Island. He's thinking about Luke. He's thinking about Rachel and like how things had gotten so complicated. Like, was this about to be like a love confession from him?
No, he does not know that he is in love with her yet.
Yeah. See, so I'm like, he's got all the pieces. He's got all the pieces, but he has not like put them together in a way that means something, it feels like. But also, this, I feel like, is just like among the things that he has not had time to like sit down and unpack because we've just been like constant fight or flight, like so many things happening all at once, There's just like, there's something in every single chapter. And it's just like, it's constant from the start of this book. In conclusion, let the children rest. Yeah, so then 2 days later, it's Percy's birthday. It's his 15th birthday, meaning that we have exactly 1 year until he has to either save or destroy the world. And I'm just thinking a lot about the fact that Annabeth is not at his birthday party because she said she was staying at camp for another like 2 weeks, so she would still be at camp. It's not that far away. And the fact that Tyson came means that like Annabeth could have also come. So this was an intentional choice on someone's part and is either Percy intentionally not inviting her or her intentionally not coming. And I think either could be true.
I think she didn't come because I think that's peak petty.
I'm not coming to your birthday party. What are we, 6? But also, like, thinking about the fact that he intentionally didn't invite Rachel, because, like, he says that later, that he didn't invite Rachel because the idea of that made him nervous. And so I was like, either he was nervous because he wasn't going to invite Annabeth and he knows that, like, if he invites Rachel and not Annabeth, like, that's going to be a thing. Or he was like, I want to invite Annabeth and Rachel, but I can't invite them both because they don't like each other. Or it was like I'm gonna invite Rachel as a placeholder for Annabeth and like felt bad about it. I don't know. I'm just there's much to unpack here because even though we're in Percy's point of view, he doesn't always tell us exactly what he's thinking, and because sometimes I think he doesn't know exactly what he's thinking, and it's just interesting. Anyway, Paul is there. That's a win. And in excellent news, Percy will be allowed to go to good after all, since Chiron manipulated the mist to make it seem like it was Kelly's fault. And, a certain someone else goes to good. Might be nice for Percy to finally have a friend at school, but this probably will not help much with the rift between him and Annabeth. We also get a fun little chat between Percy and Paul, where Paul kind of just immediately clocks that Percy's been having a hard time and that he's got girl trouble. Percy thinks about how he told his mom that he will tell Paul the truth, but decides this isn't the time. And Paul kind of drops a bomb here and tells Percy that he wants to propose to Sally, but doesn't feel right doing it without talking to Percy. Percy kind of thinks about how happy Paul makes his mom and how he went out of his way to get Percy into high school and, ends up telling Paul to go for it. And I love this. I love Paul. But also, how long have he and Sally been together? Because they were hanging out in the last book, which took place in December. But that really felt like the start of their relationship. So they've been together maybe like 8 months at this point.
Now the whole world might end.
Yes, but Paul doesn't know that.
Like,
that's the whole thing.
And time also passes so differently when you've been in the labyrinth.
Okay, but like August is August.
Stop being a hater, Mal.
I'm not being a hater. I'm not saying they shouldn't get married. I'm just saying
this is real lover shit.
Listen. They're also older, so they know more of what they want. And sometimes when you know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just the fact that they haven't like told him the truth yet. So they're like, there's this huge part of their lives that he's missing. That I'm just kind of like, Paul, wait a second. Like you don't know everything. Like you need to have all the information before you make this decision. But I am not anti Sally and Paul by any means. Why would I be anti Sally and Paul? I love Paul Blowfist. What a man. He's a cool guy. Anyway, then good old Poseidon shows up, which is fun.
Hilarious, actually. That he shows up at this moment.
And in a Hawaiian shirt and Birkenstocks. Percy kind of notes that it's odd that their doorman didn't call up or anything. And part of me is kind of like, doorman? Okay, rich. How did they score this apartment? Because I have never had a doorman here in this city. And so Sally is shook by Poseidon showing up because, But Paul introduces himself because, Paul has no idea who this guy is. There's no history there. And we, of course, have to have the blowfish conversation again because, like father, like son. It is also interesting to me that he fully introduces himself as Poseidon. Like, he doesn't have some fake name. He's just like, I'm Poseidon. The other thing that was confusing to me here is that it is revealed to Paul that Tyson is Poseidon's son as well. I'm like, why wouldn't they just introduce Tyson to Paul as Percy's half-brother?
Yeah, I've always wondered that too. Like there was such like an easy way to do this, and then like you took the path of most resistance. It's confusing.
Because also, is this the first time that Paul is meeting Tyson? Probably is.
That's the sense that I get. Because he's like, oh, this random child that I'm assuming is Percy's friend.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, he's Percy's brother.
Well, because I would imagine that, like, Percy being a teenage boy would, like, walk in with Tyson and be like, hey, this is Tyson. And just, like, give no explanation as to, like, who Tyson is, probably. And so then it was, like, a surprise that Tyson is... But see, these are the things that he needs to know before he marries into his family. You're co-parenting with a Greek god, essentially.
He's a grown man. He's fine. He can make his own choices.
He can. I'm just saying. He deserves to have all the information because I believe that Sally is a good person who wouldn't want to marry someone under false pretenses.
Okay, to say that these are false pretenses is maybe kind of a leap.
Okay.
You've never not been honest on a date or in a romantic situation before?
Not in like a relationship. Like once you've been with someone for several months.
Okay, yes. But we're not privy to the inner workings of their relationship. Also, how do you tell somebody that without them thinking you're absolutely bat poop crazy? Hey, so like Percy's dad, right? Good God.
Well,
Like instant deal breaker there. I'm sorry.
it kind of feels like we had an opportunity possibly to bring it up to Paul. I don't know, like later when Poseidon just disappears and they like have to spend this time convincing him that he left through the fire escape. Like that was an opportunity to tell him the truth. He's seen enough weird things to like know that something is up. I think Paul would be open to the information. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, the reason for Poseidon's visit, he like pulls Percy aside into the kitchen and asks him to fill him in on like everything that happened. And we, have to talk about Luke Kronos once again. And Poseidon says he doesn't know how it's possible that Luke could host Kronos, but he will most likely have to be killed if they are going to kill Kronos. And Poseidon also says that he's at war with some old sea gods and he can't stay long, but he gives Percy a sand dollar and tells him to spend it wisely. And Percy also finally gets to ask about Antaeus and all his skulls and how he claimed to be Poseidon's favorite son. Poseidon's kind of like, of course, I didn't ask for all of these skulls, nor do I approve of this. And he also says that Percy is his favorite son, which, okay, if he's your favorite, why not call some more? And also, your other son, Tyson, is right in the other room. Anytime a parent, like, admits that they have a favorite child, it's a red flag to me.
Okay, listen, my dad used to tell me that I was his favorite all the time, but I have since come to learn he did the same thing with my sister.
Poseidon's out here just telling everyone that they're his favorite son.
Exactly.
And that's why Antaeus was like, I'm his favorite son. He likes my skulls.
You got it.
Man, you really unlocked some things for me there. Anyway, the other thing that Poseidon brings up in this conversation is he brings up what happens at Mount St. Helens, and initially Percy thinks that he's talking about the kiss, which is great. He just kind of completely forgot, like, you don't have that kind of relationship with your dad. But in Percy's brain, in like the hierarchy of importance of things that like happened that day, releasing Typhon, the greatest monster the gods have ever faced, falls just below Annabeth kissing him. And so that's like where we're at. And, Poseidon basically goes, yeah, once Typhon's out, he's going to head straight for New York. All right, bye. And then he like turns into mist and disappears. A real big bummer at the birthday party. And then, they eat cake, they eat ice cream, play some party games before Percy goes off to his room. And we get a mention of the beads on his necklace for the first time, I think, since the first book, because I don't think that they said anything about the beads since he got like the first trident bead. But, he's got 2 more now. He's got a golden fleece from last summer and a maze. It's wild that there's no bead for the 3rd book because that didn't happen over the summer. Like there's not a bead. And then Percy also thinks about how he almost invited Rachel to his birthday party, but he didn't. And the idea of calling her now makes him nervous. And then he also finds his little clipping of moon lace from his pocket that Calypso gave him, and he remembers her asking him to plant a garden in Manhattan. So he figures may as well start now and plants the moon lace in a little planter box and like sprinkles some nectar over it and grows this like tiny little silver plant. And all the girls are represented in this chapter. You've got like the kiss with Annabeth living rent-free in his head. You've got him thinking about calling Rachel. You've got him planting the flower from Calypso. It's just like too many girls for one 14-year-old boy. And then our final little moment here, Nico also appears. And, he's really leaned into the Hades aesthetic. He's dressed in all black shirt, black jeans, and now he's got this silver skull ring, which I didn't realize this was like the first time he had the silver skull ring.
He had to pop into a Spencer's gift shop, Hot Topic, before he made it to Percy's birthday party.
He came dressed to impress.
He did not actually get a birthday present for Percy.
No. The skull ring was Percy's birthday present to Nico. Like, happy birthday. I'm showing up to your party looking cool.
Sick ring, bro.
Nico and his silver skull ring update Percy on Daedalus's punishment, which is, he'll be building overpasses and exit ramps in Asphodel to ease traffic congestion. So could be worse. But the real reason he's come is because he's found out some things and he now knows like what might be the only way to beat Luke. So Percy invites him in for some blue birthday cake so that they can discuss. And that's the end of this one. Another book down. How we feeling?
I hope there are so many action sequences in the next one. I love the action parts. It's my favorite part.
There are probably some really good action
Better.
sequences.
They got a lot of ass kicking to do.
They sure do. Yeah. Any other thoughts on the next one? What you're wanting, what you're expecting?
I need my girl Rachel back. I need her back.
Obviously.
I want some more Percy, Annabeth, cute moments. I'm interested to see if Luke is actually still in there, even though they cut out his heart or whatever. I enjoyed it. I like this one.
I like this one too. I think probably because it is just one bad thing after another, and I love when characters suffer.
Oh.
Well, we're going to take some time off after this one and come back in 2025, which that's not a real year. And I'm going to read at least one book that Julie wants me to read in the meantime.
Yeah.
So that I can convince her to read some of the fun little short stories when we return.
Yeah.
Sydney, you and I are about to go see The Lightning Thief on the West End, so
That we are.
the people can expect some yapping about that at some point.
When are you guys going?
January.
January?
Okay.
All right, well, love you both.
Love you guys.
Love you.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Hi, thanks for listening. As always, you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Threads at DemigodDebutPod. And if you liked what you heard, please drop us a review wherever you're listening. This is our last episode of 2024, but we'll be back in the new year to talk about The Last Olympian, as well as some other fun things. If you've listened to us yap this year, thank you. And if you're listening in the future, thank you too. See you in 2025. Bye!